Hey, I'm Brad, and welcome back to Through the Decades, the podcast. My mum is a manager of Chinnoy's Court in Braintree, Essex, which is a McCarthy Stone retirement living development. Throughout this series, I'll be interviewing some of the homeowners and getting an insight into their entire lives from their childhood through till now. Today, for the final episode in Chinnoy's Court, I'm joined by Brenda, who is 85 years old. So, Brenda, tell us a little about your life, who you are, and your life highlights.
I was born the year before the war started, Second World War started, and I'm a twin. I've got a twin sister. We were born in Stratford, in the East End of London, but when we were a year old, we moved to Woodford Green, and we were there I was there for 25 years until I got married. We lived right by the side of the London North Eastern Railway, which is now the Central Line. So we had steam trains running outside my father used to go to work in London, and when he got to that point, he'd open the window and wave with his paper to say that he was nearly coming into Woodford Station and would be home in about 15 or 20 minutes, so that my mother knew it was time to get the dinner ready. My earliest memory, during the war, people had to carry gas masks with them. Well, my sister and I were only toddlers, so we had to have a Mickey Mouse gas mask. It was got ears just like Mickey Mouse, and I think we would have cooperated with our mother if we could have used it as a toy, but we didn't understand it wasn't a toy and it was there for a serious reason, so I think she had a bit of a problem from time to time. And I can remember the smell of it. It was really rubbery smell, and it felt terribly claustrophobic when you put it on your head. I think that's probably my earliest memory. My sister and I got used to the air raids during the war. We got used to slates falling off the roof and windows being blown in, sleeping downstairs on just a mattress and not in our bedroom, because our father wasn't in the war, but he did air raid night. He was a night watchman, and they used to have to go up and have a look in the skies and see if anything was falling, and incendiary bombs there were. We had one in our back garden once, and people flew. We didn't worry at all. There was fire in the back garden, which they just put out and went on to somebody else.
Wow.
In 1943 we started school. I loved school. I always loved school, but my sister hated it. And the very first time we went to school, all the toilets were in a block in the playground. It wasn't attached to your school building. And I think it was after the first morning, we went home to lunch, and my sister said to me, we haven't got to go back again in the afternoon, have we? Mum said, of course you have. She didn't want to, but of course she was made to. And when she got there, she got away from the teacher that we got, and she went out in the playground and ran round all the toilet block before she was caught and brought back. She never liked school at all, but as I say, I loved it. So at 11, I passed what they at the time called the scholarship, now the 11 plus, but she didn't. And that was the first time we had really been parted. So I went to a grammar school and she went to a comprehensive school, which I think was a good idea, really, because she didn't want to learn. But she was the brightest child and a bit naughty. I guess I was as well. But I used to worry because she couldn't do it, and so I had to make sure that I knew what I was doing and got everything right, which of course I didn't, knowing that she would get the same things wrong as me. But that got sorted when I went to a grammar school and she didn't. And then my parents sent her to a private school to do shorthand and typing, because she just was not an academic at all. At grammar school, I think I blossomed, because on my own I could go along at my own speed. I loved sport. I was in all the school teams. And in 1951, there was the Festival of Britain held on the banks of the Thames. The previous one had been in 1851, where Prince Albert had organised it. In 1951, it was so soon after the end of the World War, probably the country needed something to revive and have something to look forward to. King George VI was our king, and he opened it on the embankment. And the school I went to was chosen from the east of England to play exhibition netball matches at the Festival of Britain.
Wow.
For those under 13, which I was. And so we had a day off school. I think my mother came with me, and we were able to go around the exhibition, and we played netball. We had an excellent school team that year. You know how sometimes there's good years and sometimes they're not quite so good, and it was really good, and I loved it. In the summer I played rounders, tennis, swimming, cricket. We had a cricket team in the sixth form. But probably my wonderful memory is of my dad. He loved sport as well, and he took me to Leighton Orient Football Club at every home match in the 50s and early 60s, and in the summer to Essex Cricket, and I loved it all. So what did I want to do? I wanted to do PE. Then one day my PE teacher said, "You know, Brenda, you won't really play it much yourself, you'll be teaching it." And it sort of put me off. So in the end I left school at 17, and I went to Pearl Assurance Company in London, in Holborn, and I played netball there in the lunchtime in Lincoln's Inn Fields, which was just behind the building and where all those sorts of activities took place. And then at the weekend I'd go to Malden in Surrey, where they had their club, their Surrey Sports Club, and I played netball there. So I was out most of Saturday because I had to go on a train, we didn't have cars. That was lovely. After that I got married. Having been there 10 years, I got married, and in 1966 I had my first daughter, Claire, and in 1968 my second daughter, Heather. Life was very different at home. I missed so much learning things and being part of a group. But that's really when I started going to church seriously, and that has been my love from that moment on, and I still go now. In the 1980s it would have been, I moved to Brentwood, and when the girls left school we came to Panfield, and my first marriage had failed, and I remarried David, and he was a civil servant, and we lived in Panfield for 27 years.
Wow.
Until we heard that McCarthy and Stone were building a development in Panfield Lane. Probably David was more enthusiastic about that than me, but he was 12 years older than me, and he wanted to know that I was settled somewhere should anything happen to him. And so we moved here. We were the first. There were 6 of us that moved the very first week, David and I, and 4 other people, all single, all widows, a widower as well. Now there are only 2 of those original 6 people here. But it's been a good time. It's been something that I've really enjoyed. It's nice when you get older to have other people close at hand to chat to. Where the building is, right by Braintree Cricket Club, which obviously for me was a great attraction.
Yeah.
And the shops so close.
Yeah.
The dentist and the banks. Perhaps the down bit was I don't drive anymore. But all good things have to come to an end, and I felt last summer I had been driving for 60 years, and it probably, I should get used to not going as far by myself. David died after we'd been here 5 years, and so it's very different on my own, very, very different. And a lot of things we did together I don't really want to do anymore. We've been to numerous places, here, all over the country, and Spain and Greece and Italy. I've done those things with him, and I don't really want to do that much anymore. And of course, aches and pains appear, and that I just can't do what I used to do.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that you considered yourself a little bit of a troublemaker when you were younger.
I was a tomboy, I think.
Yeah. So if I had to ask you, kind of with your parents, what was the worst thing you got in trouble for?
Probably speaking out and asking them questions, especially my mum, that she didn't feel that comfortable asking. For example, I'm going to church, Mummy, so why don't you?
Yeah.
She didn't see that as being appropriate. Don't be rude was her answer to that. I got on very well with my father, and he died when I was just 26. And I often think now, we were quite alike. But my mother, obviously, she lived for another 20 odd years after him. And I miss her, but not in the same way as my father. Probably everybody could say that.
Yeah.
I didn't love one more than the other, but because Dad liked all sports and so did I.
Yeah.
And he liked painting and drawing, and so do I. So we had a lot in common, I suppose.
So, you mentioned obviously you loved school, but then when you left school, what was your working life like?
Oh, I had a lot of friends, made a lot of friends in London, and that is it. We used to mainly then do things in London because everybody lived in the suburbs. I was in insurance, so I was in the accounts department.
Right.
And I was there for 10 years until I left to have my first daughter.
Wow.
I just had the one job.
Wow. So, what has been the biggest lesson that you've learned in your life?
I think to have confidence.
Yeah.
To have confidence, which is from when I started going to church. I then became a lay preacher. I did a 3-year training course with Bangor University. And then I lay preached round the Chelmsford district, and then I was asked to be local leader at Bocking United Reformed Church, and I was there for 4 years as their leader and another year as what they called interim moderator. It's when a group of churches hasn't got any minister and somebody looks after it until another one is found, and I did that for a year. I had to leave that in the end because David had a stroke and I couldn't really do both jobs, although he always encouraged me, and he was in part responsible for giving me the courage to go forward and do that. The training was at Ely and at Westminster College. I obviously mixed with people who were of like mind, which I do think is quite important in areas of your life. You do need people who feel and are interested, I think, in similar things to you, but we are all different, and you have to get to know and you learn and get experience from other people who are very different to yourself.
Yeah.
But I still go to church now, and it's still the thing in my life.
Yeah. If you could go back to any age or
Yeah.
any year of your life,
Yeah.
what would it be and why?
I think the late teens,
Yeah.
just before I left school, because I would have had I think I would have had more confidence to follow what I really wanted to do, and that was to teach PE or go into nursing. I would have liked, but I can remember my mother saying to me, I left school at 14, she said, you're 17, getting on for 18, and she gave me the impression that I really should be working and contribute to the family income. So I never did do that.
Yeah. You beat me to it, because my next question was, when you were younger, what was your big dream? So you mentioned that you wanted to be a sports teacher.
I did.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, I was good at all sports, and I did life saving as well. Our school was very fortunate enough to have a swimming pool, so you taught a class of 4 people, and provided 3 out of 4 of them passed their life saving exam, you then got your instructor's certificate. So I could see, even though I was a bit timid, which I definitely was, that I could do these things really. I just needed encouragement. Probably, bearing in mind it was soon after the war, life had almost stopped in progress. A lot of people had gone back to the 30s, which I don't obviously know, and it took a long time to get going, and I think I was probably a victim of that. If I'd have been born 10 years later, I would have probably considered doing what I really wanted to do. But in the 50s it hadn't got going, and I thought, no, well, I must go out to work and earn some money.
So you wish that you'd have been able to get into what you wanted to do?
Well, I certainly, yes, it might not have been PE if it was now, but I'd have definitely gone to do further education or a professional thing in some way.
Yeah.
Probably, I would say, as things developed, in the church.
Yeah.
Probably a minister in the church.
That's lovely. This is a big question, and a lot of my guests have kind of struggled to answer it, because there must be so many things. But what would you say was the best day of your life? Because there must be so many days that you've really loved. But what was the best?
That's difficult, because what might have appeared to have been best at the time later was not the best.
Yeah.
I think probably having my first child was an experience that was really wonderful.
Yeah.
Although I loved the second one as much as the first, but having gone through it once, it's not a first time experience, although it was different. But having the children,
that's the best.
I love children. Yeah.
And what are you most proud of? Is having kids what you are most proud of?
Having the confidence to say, yes, I want to do a course in lay preaching and take it to as far as I can. When I really was so shy as a child, I couldn't believe that I was able to do that, and I did. And when I was at Bocking, they didn't want me to leave at the end.
Wow.
I would never, so I would say, if you've got a dream, go for it. You might not know how it's going to go forward at the moment, but it will. And when you've achieved it, it's the most lovely feeling.
Yeah.
Never give up hope. I think hope for me is a word that I use quite often. We only know the here and now, but things do unfold in a way that we can't imagine.
That's really inspiring. Do you have any kind of big tales that you still want to tell about your life?
During the war, I think about more now than when I was going through it, because I was only a child.
Yeah.
I never had any fear of it, because I had my mum and dad there, and so long as they're all right, you're all right. That wasn't the case, obviously, outside my house or location or country, but that's how I felt as a child. So I do think having a firm foundation with a good mum and dad sets you up for whatever's to come.
Nice. Right, so let's move to the present day. You're now living here at Chinnery's Court, which is a McCarthy Stone independent living development. You mentioned earlier that you've been living here from day one. So how long have you been living here?
It will be 9 years in October.
Wow, so 9 years living here.
Yes.
And what made you move to a McCarthy Stone development instead of anywhere else?
Mainly because David was a lot older than me and wanted to... We lived in a village, and when we heard of this development being built, he said that would be ideal. He said then I would know you're near all the facilities and that you'll have other people with you to be able to share whatever happens, good or bad. I was a bit dubious at first, but he was right. He was absolutely right. And we fitted in here as soon as we came here. It was just lovely having things to share with other people, or go out of your apartment and somebody would have a 5-minute chat, and we did things together.
Yeah.
I've made 1 or 2 good friends here as well, which is really now a very good thing. Now I've been left on my own, you really need other people to support you and share with. And here I go to coffee morning and film night and anything your mum as manager here puts on, because it's lovely.
Yeah. So how do you find this type of community living? Because obviously this is an independent living development. There are other developments which are assisted living, but this is an independent living where there are loads of social activities, as you mentioned, coffee mornings, there's knit and natter, film afternoons.
Yeah.
How do you find this type of community living?
Well, I like it because I don't like being on my own. I'm a twin, as I've just said. So I've always shared with somebody else, and after that I married. So I've never had a time until David died 4 years ago of ever being on my own. So to have people that are potentially around you, or you can phone, or you see, meet up with, for me has been, well, really, really good.
I mean, it sounds like this development as a whole, Chinnery's Court, is a real family. It seems like everyone is just there for everyone else.
Yes, obviously with all people you get closer to some people than other people. Yeah. Some people want to join in and other people don't. Some do sometimes and some don't. But I do like joining in, and I'm interested in most things because I still like to continue learning and getting to know things that I haven't known up to now. Yeah.
So, would you recommend this type of community living at McCarthy Stone?
I definitely would.
Yeah, that's lovely to hear. Yeah. So, I'm going to end off this episode in the way I've ended every single episode of this series. I'm going to ask you, Brenda, what one piece of advice would you give to the younger generations?
Never give up hope. Be kind to one another and be willing to share. And have confidence, because you realise that when you speak to other people, they're not that much different to yourself, and they need confidence as well. So sharing things together is much, much better than keeping quiet and keeping it inside yourself.
Nice, I love that. Well, that is all we have time for today. I would like to thank Brenda for, of course, joining me and sharing her incredible tales. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the episode, this is the final episode of my first series, and it has been truly lovely hearing so many amazing stories from so many incredible people. But don't fear, this is definitely not the end, and I'll be back for a series 2 in the next couple of weeks in another McCarthy Stone development, hearing some more fascinating stories through the decades. So, Don't forget to save, share the podcast on Spotify and YouTube, and turn on the notifications to be the first to hear Series 2 arriving in the next few weeks. Apart from that, I shall see you very soon.